are not infinite. Are not infinite, but finite. Finite means they are limited. So when we manage, we use the resources. Point number 3, that which what you should understand about resources are that the type of resources that we use in managing our institutions are: number 1, human resources; number 2, financial resources; number 3, technological or natural resources. I won't be able to mention all, but what we need to know is that if we really want to manage our organization or our church, we need human resources, we need finance, we need technology, especially this during lockdown. I'm focusing mainly on during lockdown. We need humans, we need finance, we need technology. Now, human resources here, just to unpack it a little bit. Human resources here include ministers of the word, church members, administrators, media team. If you've got a media team in your church that is helping with the preaching of the word during lockdown, they are part of the human resources. Point number 4, there are different management styles that we should understand. I'm just giving about three types of management styles. Number 1 is traditional, number 2, team, and number 3, servant. And I want to focus mainly on the team, because when I look at the way how our church is structured, it is structured, let me say, it embraces what we call the teamwork approach in management of its human resources. If I can give you an example, at congregational level, we have the church council. The church council consists of team, and you can also see this in Article 7 of the General Synod. And then at presbytery level, we have the presbytery committee, and that is a team. And you can see this if you want to know the function of the committee of the presbytery. Article number 9 of the General Synod will give you that information. At regional synod level, we've got the moderate team, and at general synod level, we've got the general synod team. So generally, if you are to look at how our church is managed, it is managed through what we call the teamwork. I also like to talk also about the servant management or leadership styles. If we look at the Bible, Jesus' style of leading or managing was what we call the servant management or servant management style. If you look at the way he gave himself to the congregation or to the members of his team, his disciples, you will realize that he really gave it everything, but he worked not as a boss, but as a servant. So the perception is that all ministers of the word and individuals should exercise servant leadership as Jesus Christ did. Now, the focus here that I have here is I need to focus on church management and finance under lockdown. Now, the first question that I had is, as a minister of the word, how do you manage your church and finance during lockdown? When I looked at stipulation number 4 of the General Synod, I realized it provides official duties of the minister of the word. And if you look at item 4.1.6, it says the minister exercises governance and the discipline of the congregation together with the church council. And if you look at 4.1.9, the minister chairs the church council meetings. The stipulation includes proclaiming of the word, conducting worship services, administer sacraments, consecration of marriages, funerals, and so on and so on. These are the duties of the ministers. The question is, how do we do all this? How do we manage all these things during the lockdown? Approaches to manage congregations during lockdown depends on the following. This is what I've seen, or come to the conclusion of after looking exactly how things are happening. Point number one, I realized that the way we approach the management of our institution during lockdown depends on the following. Point number one, they depend on the geographical location of your congregation. Number two, and church membership profile. If you really want to manage your congregation well, you must know where it is located. And number two, you must also look at the membership profile. Example number one, if we're talking about, hello, are you hearing me?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, all here.
Okay, oh, thank you.
Thank
okay.
you. Okay.
Let me give an example. I said the way we approach this depend on number one, geographical location, number two, the church profile. Example number one, rural congregation, membership profile, gender, age, education level, economic status, employment, unemployment, income, dependency on grants, and so on. If you look at the rural congregation, they are mainly dominated by elderly and the youth. And the approach you use for this, I'm telling you, will definitely be different from the approach you will use when you are looking at the city congregation. Now, and if you look at the rural congregation again, you'll realize that the resources in that area, in most of these areas, are low-level technology. In other words, there is not much that you can do with the technology, but of course there are exceptions, and low level of income in rural areas. But if we are to look at the city congregations, and you look at the membership profile, look at the gender, the age, education level, you realize that they're generally dominated by the youth and economic active members. You should underline this. City congregations are dominated by young people and economic active members. The gender, even though female dominated, the income is generally high. So resources in city congregations are at a very high level. And the income is also very high compared to the income in a rural congregation. Even though during the lockdown time, the income level has gone down in almost all the congregation. What are the possible strategies to manage city congregations? Let's start there. Here I'll just give example, also looking at our experiences in our congregations in the city. And then we shall also look at how the strategy, on strategies that can be used in a rural congregation. Okay. Firstly, if you want to manage, you must be able to communicate. So say, for instance, you want to have meetings with your city church. The strategist would be church council and ministers meetings may be held through virtual team meetings, telephone conferencing, and so on and so on. This morning, I think Reverend Mabelane unpacked all these things for us. I'm not going to repeat all those things, but the city church is able to meet with its members virtually using either the what you call the Wi-Fi, let me say the virtual meetings and telephone conferencing and others. But here, for this to happen, we need resources such as the internet, the Wi-Fi, the fiber, data, laptop, cell phones, and so on and so on. And point number two, another approach here for communication as we have learned this morning, will be the WhatsApp. WhatsApp is the easiest way to communicate. And in the city center, this is the easiest way to communicate with your people. You can manage them well and communicate with them through WhatsApp and other devices or other systems. Point number 3, I want to include finance now. Tithing and offering. How do you manage tithing and offering in the city center? How do you make sure that money comes in during lockdown when there are no church services, face-to-face or live church services? What is happening in church, city churches, because they have got resources, you can allow your members to use what we call the online banking process. Proof of payments can be sent to the finance committee or church administrator or secretary of the church, church council, ministry chairs, or those who are responsible for finance in the church. Let me repeat this. You can use online banking in the city. It is easy for everyone to continue to give your tithing and offerings. But in order to manage these things well, you must make sure that those people who are depositing money into the church account, they must also send proof of payments to either the finance committee or the person responsible for finance in your congregation. Point number 4 that I want to make here: payments of church workers, municipality, waters, electricity, and others. If you are in the church, in this city church, that is very simple. You can do what we call online bank transfer when you are seated behind your own computer. It's so easy. That is how we can manage your finance as you use, and let me say, online banking, because the technology is there, the internet is there, the Wi-Fi, the fiber, especially if you have the fiber, there won't be interruptions except if there are load sheddings. That's the best way to manage the city congregations. What are the possible strategies maybe to manage rural congregation? Conducting worship services. How do we conduct, let me say, city work services? During the presentation of Reverend Mabilani, he also indicated the systems that we can use. So in the city, you can do video recording of messages, voice recording of messages, even live streaming is simple in the city. You can do that. Conducting sacraments, baptism, how do you do that? In the city, I've heard that there are people who are also conducting Holy Communion through the virtual systems here in the city churches. So the issue is you have to manage it. You have to prepare it before you do it. But consecration of marriages, that's a challenge. Funerals, we know how funerals can be done. With the funeral, you have to go there, you have to do it. But the challenge is only 50 people, you see. I want us to look now at specifically on rural congregations. Church council and ministry meetings may be held through what? How do you hold church meeting in rural congregation when you cannot meet? If you don't have all those devices, all the internet, the Wi-Fi, the fiber, the data, the laptop, cell phones, how do you do it? That's a big question. I think I also need some input from some of you, especially people from the rural congregation, to tell us exactly how they are doing this. How do they conduct their meetings and so on? But that will be easy if they have resources like internet, Wi-Fi, fiber, and so on and so on. Communication, how do you communicate in a rural area? But these days, WhatsApp is an easy thing. Even in rural areas, you can still use WhatsApp for communication. But are there other methods that can be used? Please tell us. Number 3, tithing and offering. I've indicated that in the city, online banking is easy. Proof of payment, sending the finance to those who are responsible for it is easy. But in rural area, how do you do it? When members of the church are dominated by the elderly and the young people, especially women, elderly women, who can't even go on online banking. How do you encourage them to give tithing? How do you collect that tithing? And how do you do offerings when people are not coming to church? I think we need to think deeply and to make sure that we find a way, because if we don't find a way, money will stop coming in. Churches in rural areas will be unable to pay their own bills, and so on and so on. How do you pay church workers or municipal waters and electricity when people are unable to offer to give their offerings? Online bank transfer depends on the available resources. If you have available resources, it will be easy. Okay. How do you conduct worship in rural areas? Do you have do you have video recordings of messages? Do they have the devices to use in order to listen to these messages? How is it happening? But I have realized, I have just noted that many rural areas are using what we call voice recordings. But voice recordings can only reach the young and especially students. But the elderly people are excluded from this, except if you can encourage young people to allow their mothers, the grandmothers, to listen to these voice recordings. But it is a big challenge to me. Conducting sacraments, that's a challenge. Funerals, we know, but let me say, if I would like to conclude this presentation of mine, the way we manage congregations and the finance in our churches these days will depend on the availability of the resources that we have. The resources I'm talking about here, I'm talking about the human resources. Say, for instance, if you do not have a media team of people with the skills that can help you to do live streaming, it is a problem as well. You may have money, but if you don't have that team that can do that, it's a problem, even if you are in the city. So if it can be a problem in the city, what about in the rural areas where we have only elderly women and men and young people? I think the problem can be higher there in the rural area than in the city areas. But above all, let me say, managing the churches during lockdown is not an easy thing. Planning, organizing, directing, and controlling these days needs resources. Not just resources, but advanced human resources, finance, and technology. Thank you very much. I think I should stop here for questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tshibalo, for very powerful and wonderful presentation. While you were talking, I was thinking about. I'm going to allow our student to ask the question, but I was thinking about the two things here, Dr. Tshibalo. Mm-hmm. What I have experienced is that the givers always is a giver, mm-hmm. Whether under abnormal circumstances, there are people who are very trustworthy that mm-hmm. always pay their tithe electronically, even before even the finance committee can say, people, please pay your pledges. They always do. But
Yes.
those who are not the givers, lockdown makes them to have a good excuse not to give anything to the church.
It's true.
Secondly, I've witnessed that, more especially in the context of North, most of the young people who are coming from the Limpopo side, who are residing here in Pretoria or here in Joburg, they normally retain their membership. It's not easy for them to take their membership from home. So during the year, they belong here in Gauteng and pay their tithes and their Sunday collection. But the sooner they reach home, whether they went there occasionally or with some ceremonies, they also place their pledge that side. So they carry some sort of a dual membership. And that helps most of the congregation in Limpopo to survive because their children, they've got that thing of belonging. I belong home. I have to do this from my hometown. I have to do it from my village. The issue of a dual membership is, you think it can work in terms of the balance so that we know that people who are staying in the city, we normally know that during the December time or the Christmas time, in the city, you are not finding any people here. Everybody went home. So do you think that issue of dual membership, it can help the congregations, more especially the ones at the villages, in terms of the finances? Rest, let us not include about the sermon in terms of the visually, because that one I think is still a bit a challenge. But the issue of the finance, you think it can work?
Yeah, the dual member, the thing is, reality is that, when these students are here in the city, they do what is here. But when they go home, they face the reality, especially poverty, and they can see that the church is struggling. So generally what they do is that when they go home, they focusing on the rural congregation. But I have also realized that there are people who are supporting even the rural churches when they are here in the city. That I have noticed. So it depends on the commitments, But I think if we can embrace the rural, the dual membership, it can also, I think it can help even the rural churches to survive. That's my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tshibalo. It was just only the comment I was thinking while you're still talking, because really, and we cannot survive without the farmers. We cannot survive without the what you call the homeland environment. It's where we get the milli-millis, where we get everything in terms of the agriculture. So we cannot say all people now, we have to shut down everything. The only good life is when you go to the city so that you can live there. So meaning we still even need the ministers to go and serve to those particular areas. Fellow students, questions and comments. It's now 2:17. We are having a time until 15-hour time. So any question, any comments that you want to share with us?
Okay.
Ntatengwako Matabate.
Tobela, and thank you very much, Muruti Tshibalo. Thank you, Chairperson. All right, two things that I'm noting here. One, as much as right now we are inclined to use technology in many things, church gatherings and so forth. Now, is it possible, Muruti, to make a proposal to the church to make a research in all presbyteries, focusing on the rural areas, to check the compatibility of some of the devices or the technological devices, so that we have clear idea that when we service a particular church and a Muruti of that particular presbytery can know that these are the recommended modes of technology that can be used. That's number one. Number two is, I think this one, I have brought it a while back to say, it impacts on the finances of the church. For example, I'm going to be brutally honest to say, if one of your members who has not been to church, you have not checked on them, how they are doing, if they are alive, if they are still working, how do you expect them to contribute to the church? So now, basically, I'm saying this is the responsibility of the church to check all the sheep to ensure that they are not lost. So if people are receiving the services, they will definitely reward that service by honoring their responsibilities. Thank you.
Okay, Market, the MD Chairperson, are you still there?
Yes, Dr. Tshibalo, I'm saying, I think the first one, it was about the research, whether the church can allow such. And also the second one is about the comment on the fellowship and also checking up to the members. So I don't know if you want to respond before I give to Tate Pudumo and Tate Twala.
Okay, I think this one is quick. Let me respond to this one quickly. I admire the suggestion of the research to be conducted in a rural area. And I would like to say, I would also appreciate if a student, a master's student, can focus in this area. Those ones maybe at honors level, when they do their masters, if we can find somebody who can look at the finances of the rural areas, especially during lockdowns, what is happening there? To tell you the honest, we don't have the information. But if we can have a thorough research on this, it will help us to make an informed decisions. Okay, number two, this one is a challenging one. This one is the number two, the issue about checking the sheep. If we as ministers of the word don't care about the sheep, but we expect the sheep to give milk when we need them, I think it will be very difficult. I think this is a great insight, Brother Matawati, to see this. If we are not servicing our people well, and we only think about them when they are not contributing or doing their offerings, it is not right. We really need to service our people properly, and also to give teachings on the importance of giving in the church. We as ministers mustn't only preach the salvation only. We must also teach our people in the importance of finance in the church. And they must also see how this finance is working in the church. If we do that, I'm telling you, I've got the perception that they can never stop giving, even during lockdown. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tshibalo. In terms of the research, Brother Tabate and all the students, let me just share this with you. You know, during my first year of study, I studied on diaspora. I was chased away with my own politics from church. But don't say that to anyone, because I'm going to be chased away again. So I was very fortunate to go to study under Northwest University. And we were put under one seminary around Mafikeng. So in that seminary, those people who are from Northwest, they know, Northwest 80% is the villages, the community there. So time to time, once a year, we will be deployed onto deep side of Khanyisa, where there's a sand, something like a Kalahari, to go and stay there with those people. to understand their life. How are they living? For sometimes couple of 2 weeks. And after that, we bring the research. Then the church write the proposal to the overseas, requesting the sponsors and go and have somebody who will minister that particular area. So it helps a lot in terms of research and networking. I think it's one of the key areas that our church need to do to expose students in different contexts, like it was happening in previous years. So I was just adding on what Dr. Tshibalo was saying in terms of the research. I think it must be one of the key areas where we deploy our students in groups or maybe in pairs to different areas where they can go and learn and bring the research and bring the understanding and come up with the model that can work to that particular area. Okay, let me not speak too much. Ntate Pudumo, after you, it will be Ntate Twala.
All right, thank you, Mahuti Makheta, and shalom, colleagues. I think you have said what I wanted to say, but in a different way. I grew up in a context where the church was funded by the mother church to run its operations. Then later, after we became Uniting Reformed Church, we had to stand alone, to be independent. So with the Uniting Reformed Church, I realized that there's only one style of raising income. It's through, the tithes, the normal Sunday collection, and the different ways that we are using, but it's almost the same. It's almost the same thing. So my point is that we need to have a different angle of raising funds in terms of the church, instead of the church milking from the same cow, which will at end have no milk. We should rather think of other ways of raising income that will sustain the congregation. Like, for instance, if the church could implement some projects, make some proposals that will bring money into the church, and we employ the people from within the church to go and work for the church. So instead of expecting income from the members, let us find ways of raising capital for the church to work for the community, and then we pay the members of the church. In that way, I think we can become a financially sustainable church. So that will apply both in the city and in the rural areas. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Pudumo, for the comment. Dr. Tshibalo, you want to add something there, or are you okay?
I think I like his ideas, especially the issue of thinking of other means of making income into the church. In fact, I think this is very essential, and I think churches must start thinking of doing business, start the business that can bring income into the church. I think it can solve a lot of problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tshibalo. Brother Twala?
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Mine is not a question, it's just an addition, because I see most of the time we speak about, like when we speak about the rural areas, we only focus on the elderly. And then to me, it's like we are forgetting the most important part of the church, which is the youth. Like what you saying now, how do you make sure that the Sunday school doesn't lose their classes in these times of COVID? How do you make sure that Sunday school is been keep on running? Another thing, your confirmation classes. How do you make sure that your classes in this COVID are also receiving the classes? Because in my church, I've seen something, and the moment you lose these guys, especially the youth, when they finish their classes, they just don't come to church. Because again, I think the other problem I've seen is that when they were taught why they must go to confirmation class, you are going to prepare yourself for Tshibalo. It is not because you understand the salvation and what the salvation is all about, so you can carry on and become like a full-time church member. So I think we also need to look at how we make sure that we don't lose these youngsters during this COVID. Thank you.
It's very important one here, Brother Thabo, really. Dr. Tshibalo?
Yeah, I just want to thank him for bringing that idea because, you know, young people are the future of the church. So if we don't build them when they are still young, you know, the African references say, in other words, you bend the tree when it's still fresh and young. So if we don't do that, we're going to lose them, and the future of the church is going to be doomed. So I want to say we need more information in the form of research to say how best can we make sure that we continue to assist our Sunday school, even the class 1, class 2. How do we assist them during lockdown? You see. Thank you very much for that contribution.
Brother Gianni, I've seen your hand.
Okay, thank you, leaders. Yeah, I'm actually doing my master's in a farm between Kempton Park and Bronx Springs. The community is called Camels and Kral. The community has been neglected by the mainline churches. So what you find there, you find that there's a lot of independent African churches and Pentecostal churches. But the mainline churches, the Methodist, Uniting Reformed Church, Roman Catholic Church, they are not present. And what I've picked up is that what I'm finding is that the majority of the people, the age group are babies. There's more babies than adults, and actually the elderly, they don't even make up 1% in the community. So, but it's quite difficult to get the youngsters in the congregation because of the disillusionment with the systems and everything. So I think that what you've proposed, that maybe somebody needs to look at the financing of rural areas, has actually triggered something in me, and I thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much, Brother Gianni. Before Dr. Tshibalo comment, let me give hand over to Brother Focus. I saw your hands is up, Dr. Focus.
Thank you, Muruti. I think I only have 2 questions. My first question would be, who will we be doing research for? Because there have been research being done, which I believe even today, master students have researched, and the church have not even reflected to any document researched by the student. So if we specifically want to do a research on a certain topic or need, who must then task us so that in future we know that whatever you are researching for will then indeed benefit the church or will be used in the church? That's mainly the first point that I wanted to bring to the attention. I think the second one is, when it comes to Sunday school, on our side, we are busy figuring out the platforms that are user-friendly for children. But when it comes to catechism, obviously we're fortunate enough to be in urban where other catechists will tune in via Zoom. And every Sunday there will be sessions of catechism taking place, and the report will come through as we're still continuing as normal classes are still taking place, the reports and everything is happening. Obviously, there are few students who will then say they're struggling in terms of data. And then therefore, there are few members who would then donate through for data purposes so that the session can continue. But I think the most crucial thing that I wanted to ask in terms of management is when it comes to church council being managing, and then we're using IM model. And my question is, in times like this, we only depend on those people that are visible
And then how do you then reach out to those that are not visible in the church? Like normal members who will come in and go, in terms of managing everything up, especially when you need to know now who is your members and not. And there's those particular people that come in and then go. Normally they will just come in and go. But now it's a crucial time. How do you then reach out to them? And how do you know what they were? They used to come in and go. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Focus. Dr. Tshibalo?
Okay, thank you very much. I want to start by responding to the question to say research has been conducted. Is there? That's what I understood. But when I look at the context here in which we are talking about management and finance during lockdown. During lockdown, I think lockdown doesn't have maybe 2 years or so, and I don't think relevant research has already been conducted in our church on issues that we're talking about here. You went on to say, ask a question, research for whom? Who need that research? I think we need the research for ourselves. We need the research for ourselves. You are going to be ministers. In order to make decisions, especially if you want to manage. I said here at the beginning, for us to manage, we need planning, we need organizing, we need directing, we need controlling. You can't plan if you don't have information. You can't organize well if you don't have information. In order to make information, you need research, and research that is properly conducted, and that will give you what we call informed information that will help you to make informed decisions. So to me, I think research is for ourselves. We as ministers, we need this information. If say for instance we get the right information as ministers of the word or as students, then it will help us to reflect on them when we go to our congregation and help ourselves with this information. But when we go out without information, this kind of information, we continue to do things that cannot help us at all. I think if we want this information to reach the management of the NTS, we are the one who can do that. Remember, we asked this is something that maybe didn't happen in the past, but because we see it being important, we can be the one as the academic committee and the students to recommend something good that we can see, that we can share with the management of the whole NTS management. When the first speaker then spoke about his experience in the farm, and that the area is dominated by the elderly, and I think that is true. But above all these things, elderly people on their own who depend on grants, it is very difficult for them to contribute financially as expected. But maybe we should find a model. Maybe if we do research, we can come up with a model that can help even congregation in the rural areas can be supported. You know, for instance, in the Lutheran Church, congregations, ministers in the congregation are not paid by the congregation. They are paid by the church from the Lutheran coffer. So there is no minister who can say, I'm not paid because my members of my congregations are poor or are in rural areas. So our model is also, I think, not good, especially when it comes to the way rural congregations are supported. Thank you.
Yeah, I think to add on what Dr. Tshibalo has just said now, I think when we spoke about the research, we are not referring about your study per se. To say, do the research for the purpose of completing or acquiring a certain degree. But out of 90% of the NTS student, if you can ask them, where do you want to go and work after you complete your studies? No one will say, I want to go to the farm, because we don't know what is happening there. But if sometimes Reverend Maponya said, I want one student, that student can even ask Reverend Maponya to say, let's go to the village where you are consonanting. Go and place me there to understand how people are living and how can a minister survive here. And bringing such information, it can help the church.
Yeah. I agree.
If we find that in that village, there's only one youth who understands the WhatsApp, we can even say, okay, I'm going to buy a speaker for that village. Every Sunday, I send a sermon to that young person. That young person must play that on the speaker in the form of a USB or in the form of a Bluetooth. All members must gather together and come to listen to that. That's how we can reach those people. But we don't know what is alive there. So none of us can wish to go and work on those villages or on the farm. But we are heavy members there, which the church is being neglecting those particular people around that areas. And the very same people that are giving us the bread, the one who are giving us the milk, the one who are giving us the meat, because we don't have cows here in town. So the research is all about, let's know what is the world around us, what the church can do, how the church can be a missionaries. Reverend Maponya earlier on said that the students who are the one who can bring ideas and change things into the church. That is my addition to what Dr. Tshibalo was saying now. We are not taking the students, we are just bringing the ideas. How can we help the church?
Yeah.
Any question? Oh, there's a what do you call it, a follow-up from Brother Focus before I give to Brother Gianni. Brother Focus?
Yes, I think I need to clarify my question. I did not say COVID is not a new thing and researchers what have not been contacted. I'm saying, one, when we say we're gonna do research, if we say it's for the individual purposes, it means it's for your own enrichment, for your own purpose as a minister to go and implement according to your own knowledge. But if we say in the church, my question is, who will then say go and do a research? Because you will go and do a research and not basically, it would not help the church, because the church it's a different system. We need to have a mandate from a meeting for you to go do something, so that you come back, you report, and then it's part of our resolution we implement. So if we just say we're going to do research and no one is there, I feel we're just going to waste our time. And when I say research has been done before, obviously I'm saying academic researches have been done, which would be helpful for the church. But unfortunately, the church not even used any research or academic research. So for the church to use the academic research, one would say, which procedures then must be followed? And how can then the church use an academic research? Because we have plenty of research that were done. For example, we have a task team of homosexual that had to go out there and do a research. But that task team were then mandated by the generals, But the question is, if we say, let's go do research, because sometimes we like saying, let's go out. One does a research, and then after that, nothing happens. So I'm just curious to say, in United Reformed Church, when we have a certain procedure and system in place, and we refer into research,
Thank you very much, brother. Oh, sorry. I thought maybe you're done.
Oh, no. I was just concluding, Muruti, just to say, if that's the system that we know, the Presbyterian system, then if we go do research, when I say repeat, I don't know.
Before Dr. Tshibalo will respond, can I give Brother Gianni and Prof after? Then we are going to respond after Prof. Brother Gianni?
Apologies, it was an old hand.
Okay, Prof?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just back from my other meeting, so
Welcome back, Prof.
Thank you. Yes, this question of research, and I'm not sure what has been said about it, but it's really crucial. I'm only really responding to what Brother Fukas has said, and that is that, look, if you want to do empirical research, in other words, interview people in the church, members of Uniting Reformed Church, you have to get permission, you have to get ethical clearance from the General Synod Committee. So there's no such thing as private research about the church. So you've got to convince the General Synod task team that what you're doing is not going to do harm. That's the first thing about ethical clearance, do no harm. And in fact, that it is going to do good. It will benefit the life of the church if that research project is done. That's the first thing. Secondly, what we need to do as a church, as a synod, each synod, is to appoint a research task team for the synod. The General Synod should also have a research task team, because if you do contextual theologizing, one of the key aspects is contextual analysis. What's going on in the world? What's going on in the church? There's very little wisdom in making policy as a synod if you don't know what's going on the ground. It's simply foolish. It's blind. So research is a key component of contextual theologizing. So it's not something extraneous or foreign to the church, but we have not yet stepped into that habit. The NG Kerk, the White Church, has a General Synod research task team. And they issue, every 2 or 3 years, they issue a publication called Kerkspiel, Church Mirror. And that's based on questionnaires that they send out to ministers, to elders, to women members, youth members, to try and find out, how do people feel about the church? How do they view the ministry, the communion, the baptism, the preaching? So then they analyze that information, and they also say our membership is dropping, or whatever's happening to membership. How do ministers feel about their salaries, about their working conditions, etc.? So without that kind of information, really it is completely unwise, if not foolish, for a church to try to manage. COVID or not, whether there's COVID or not, we have to manage intelligently. And to manage intelligently in a fast-changing society, you have to do research. You must also read what the sociologists and the economists have written in their research, or that they've done, because they're talking about our members as well. But sorry, I'm probably saying too much, but what we need to do is, as NTS, we need to stimulate our 2 regional synods to appoint research task teams. How many so-called vacant congregations are there? Who's preaching in those congregations? etc., etc. What's going on? We can't even train ministers properly if we don't know what kind of society, what kind of congregations we are training you for. So research is seriously lacking, and we simply need to do it, all of us, and get permission from the General Synod ethically that we're doing it for the benefit of the church.
Prof is off again.
I just muted myself. Yes, I finished.
Okay, Prof, thank you very much. Dr. Tshibalo?
Yeah, you know
We are
what?
left
I think
only, 2 minutes now.
Okay.
On our time.
Well, let's allow Pudumo to speak. Then we'll talk. I'll respond after.
Yes, but I think Prof has answered the question of Brother Focus.
Yeah, you know, that is what I wanted to say. Prof
Okay.
has almost responded to all the questions that were posed here. And he gave what we call a detailed explanation of the need of research and how important it is. Yeah, so I think I don't have to respond again on the issue of the need for research. Maybe we can listen to the next person, Pudumo.
No, Pudumo is not. Pudumo. Okay, Brother Pudumo and Brother Focus. We are going to share 1 minute, 1 minute.
I'm going to use 30 seconds.
Brother.
It's just a question to Prof. Kritzinger on the, how effective is the general synod research team in terms of the ethical clearance? How are they ensuring that everyone who's doing the research, either academic or
Prof, I'm not sure. Did you get the question of Brother Pudumo?
He trailed away at the end, but I think he asked how effective is the General Synod in assuring ethical clearance. I don't know.
Let's give Focus, then we can wrap up. Brother Focus?
It was an old hand.
It was an old hand.
The research,
yes. Somebody's talking. It's Pudumo. Okay, Prof. I think you can respond on that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how well they assess it. I have no experience of it. I just know that you have to get that clearance if you want to do research on members of the church. You also, if you're doing it academically, obviously you have to also get clearance of the university where you are enrolled. But even if you're not enrolled, if you're doing it, let's say, just for the sake of better ministry, you must still get permission from the General Synod.
Compiling some information, some results, and recommendations. What does the church do about that in a long run?
Prof?
I don't know.
Are you
I'm
taking,
not sure. I don't think I should.
The question says, I've written about the Belha Confession on my study. So after completing my study, the university gave me the result that I passed my research. Remember on my paper, there are the evaluation or the proposal on the paper. Are the members of UCSA or the General Synod are interested on those research that we are doing on our studies? And if they are, what are they doing with those papers? Or they are not even know what exactly that we are doing at the university?
Yeah, that's a crucial one.
I don't know if you want me to answer, Chair.
Yes.
All of us who can answer. Anyone who wants to ask can answer. Prof, can you assist? Dr. Tshibalo, can you assist also?
Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that there's copies of those dissertations in the NTS library, either a digital library or the physical one. That's the first thing. Secondly, if I think of my research that I did in my life, my doctoral thesis, individuals read it and they do something with it. But if you do it specifically for a church qualification in order to be licensed in a church, we have to ask, how can NTS itself, the academic unit, make sure that it reads those dissertations, interprets them, and brings that to the attention of the relevant core ministries. Something we've never done before. We've never had the energy or the time to do it, but it's a very important question. That'll be my contribution.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Tshibalo?
Yes.
Have you read?
I'm glad, yes, I heard the question. I'm glad that these questions are being asked. It really shows that people are serious and critical about issues. If I can also say, I also wrote something about the Bell, how Melodia Tshwane is applying the Bellhart Confession. That is my master's thesis that I wrote. But if I ask myself how many people wrote, I even gave the Church Council one copy of that. But if I ask myself how many people even of Melodia Tshwane might have read that copy, I don't think there are many people who have read about it. But I think this is something that we should start emphasizing and making sure that all the master's thesis and the PhD that are written based on under NTS, why can't we make sure that each student sends a copy to the NTS library so that even other students can read and learn something from it? So I really want to support the idea that we make sure that students' dissertation or thesis must be given space in the library. And from there, I think everybody can access them, and we shall be informed what we need to do maybe. Thank you.
Colleagues, I think we came to the end of our session. And let me take this opportunity to thank you, all of you guys, the one who participated, your questions and your comments. Also to thank Dr. Tshibalo for the well-informed presentation about our current situation. Although he's still owing me the question because I asked him that my congregation has not even effected my increment. What is the advice? Dr. Tshibalo, only one last question from you and Prof about we spoke about the financial challenges of our congregations. So the issue of finances, more especially on the livelihood of the ministers, it has impacted very negatively, more especially where some ministers, their salary had to be cut. The issue of the what you call the payment or the salary of the ministers, as is imperative, is something that can be challenged in the court of law, or that is not how the church operates. During this lockdown, what was the mutual thing that can be done between the church and the ministers? Anything that maybe can assist, not me in particular, I'm not referring on me, but as we're deliberating about the finance during this lockdown and management. 1 minute for Prof, 1 minute for Dr. Tshibalo.
Prof must start.
Well, I'm actually completely unqualified to speak about this, Chair. I never received a salary from a congregation. I've always been a tent maker like the Apostle Paul. So I don't know it from personal experience, but a minister doesn't get a salary. He's not an employee. A minister gets a emolument or a stipendium, which means you're not an employee in the sense that you can be fired by the congregation. You can't be fired by the congregation. So the Labor Relations Act doesn't apply to a minister as it applies to other employees, which means that it's a particularly spiritual relationship. It's a financial one. It's a form of working together under the lordship of God. But so it's a partnership. So you need to negotiate. It's not, you can't go, I don't think you should go to court. The court normally says, no. In terms of your church order, you're not an employee. So you can't go to the CCMA. You don't qualify because you're not an employee, technically speaking. So you've got to negotiate your salary, your emolument, whatever you are paid with the church council, and plan with them to the best of the possibilities of the congregation at that time.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Tshibalo?
Yeah, the biggest problem here is when a minister is full-time and during lockdown, some congregations stopped paying their ministers. And this minister, because it's full-time, he doesn't get any income from anywhere. Unfortunately, some church council use this as an opportunity, lockdown as an opportunity of not paying some ministers because they didn't want to do so. But in some instances, we have part-time ministers who realize that the income has come very, very low, who voluntarily ask their church council not to pay them, you see, until the income was good enough for them to get those salaries. So it depends on who you are, and I mean on your status. As a full-time, it becomes very, very difficult for you not to be paid, because it makes it very difficult for you and your family to survive. So that's why I say I think we also need another model for our church. I said here at the beginning, like the Lutheran Church. The Lutheran Church ministers are not paid by the congregation; they are paid by the synods. So I think if maybe our model can change, that's my view. I'm not saying we must do it. That's my view, which needs to be discussed and approved, maybe at general synod level. But it is waiting for the Lutheran Church. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much, Dr. Tshibalo. Our fellow until you retire, negotiate. Colleagues, we came to the end of our presentation. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Tshibalo, and our students, and Prof for your inputs. Colleagues, can I request now to take a break, maybe to hand the baton to Prof to lead us with the last item, including the request from Ntate Mathabathe that maybe we can have about 15 minutes time where the student can share amongst themselves. But I'll ask Prof maybe to lead that. Brother Mathabathe, you can also again just highlight or just a brief Prof about your proposal, so that he can be able to lead the discussion. I think now I need to take some water. I'm not breaking, but I'll be still in the meeting. But at least somebody can now continue the program until we go to the devotion. Prof, can you do a last item for us, please?
Okay, Chair, I'll do that. All right, so this on the program is it's a general discussion looking back on the day, maybe evaluating the inputs, evaluating the whole process. And then before we close with the devotion, is there anyone who'd like to comment on the proceedings of the day? Either a proposal or comment on the different inputs that were received and etc. Any? Yes, Brother Matavate.
Thank you very much, Prof. My comment, or rather proposal, is on certain things that I see that I think when we came to this contact session, we were looking for some answers and assurance with regard to certain things. Generally, whatever was discussed today went on very well. The presenters were prepared and the discussions flowed. And for that, I need to say thank you. But now I have a few things here. One is what has been, that I've been suggesting throughout the previous contact session. For example, okay, let me start with the January submission. Remember, in January, we did not have the normal contact session. And the registration documents were supposed to be submitted so that they can declare students as good standing or lacking any other thing. Now, I'm going to ask that you comment on that, so that how would we know that we are in good standing and so forth? That is number one. Number two, which is related to number one, this is the contact session for the final year students, and as per the invitation, those who are likely to be licensed in August. So which means the question, number one question would be, will there be licensing in August? And the second question would be, for us who know ourselves to be final year students, what guarantees do we have? Or rather, is it not possible, or rather, let me make it as a request to say, can all of us have our files checked so that letters can be written to us to tell us what is it that is lacking or outstanding for us, so that we need to prepare them in preparation for potential licensing next year? Last comment or last question. My worry is that we are final year students and we're going into the ministry. I think we're coming in as a new breed of, new breed of ministers, wherein our spouses are not being considered for training of some sort or for some workshops. And when we are going into the ministry without this having been done, we are going to face huge problems, huge challenges. We need to be able to support each other. Our spouses need to be knowing what is expected of them and so forth. And I think this item was said it was going to be given to the continuing ministerial development, but I think that is a dead commission. Sorry to say that, but I didn't see them doing anything. So is there anything that could be done, or this is just another thing that will just come up with such suggestions, but it's not going to go anywhere? Please assist in whatever way you can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other comment or question? Brother Gianni.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah, earlier I asked the question that just to get an orientation, because this contact session is for master student as well as finalist. Ideally, a master student should be a finalist. So if there's a distinction, can we maybe get clarification so that we are clear on that?
Okay, let me start by responding to these questions. Not that I'm really the official who should be responding to many of these questions. I'm, as you all know, an advisory member on the SMC and no more than that. But let's start with masters and finalists. The reason why that distinction is made is there are some students who have completed their masters. but have not yet been licensed. So we just wanted to, from the academic unit side, wanted to make sure they're included so that they don't feel, oh, well, we're not enrolled for masters anymore, so we don't have to attend. You see what I mean? That's why masters and finalists was distinguished. That's for those who are just doing a language, etc., but have already finished their masters. That's the simplest question to answer. Brother Matabate, who declares good standing? Well, that's the MFTT. That's not the SMC. And the MFTT does it on the recommendation of the assessment committee. The assessment committee, as you all know, does annual interviews with students, and then on the basis of the interview, makes a recommendation to the MFTT. Now, so that question should be asked of the assessment committee or of the MFTT, not of the SMC. If the SMC asks these questions, they are often blamed of trying to do the work of the other commissions, or they're trying to, or you're taking over, or anything, something like that. You're telling us what to do. So because of the relationships, it's awkward for the SMC to clamor for these things to be done. But the SRC, which is represented on the MFTT as an observer member on the AC, I think the SRC should take this up with the scribe maybe of the MFTT and the scribe of the AC, or the chairperson of the AC and MFTT, to ask, with all due respect, brothers and sisters, we haven't been interviewed this year. Are we in good standing? Does it matter? Are you concerned about us? Are you still there? Are we still here? That I think is something that perhaps the SRC could initiate. If the SRC brings a proposal to the SMC, that the SMC should write a letter like this, then the SMC can consider it. I wouldn't say, I'm not a member of a voting member of the SMC. The SMC will then have to consider it. In the past, it wasn't fruitful, but I'm not saying that it therefore shouldn't be done this time. Finalists, licensing, again, whether there will be licensing in August does not depend on the SMC. That depends on the AC recommending to the MFTT. So at the moment, the uncertainty about that lies with the non-functioning of the assessment committee during the lockdown. There was a proposal from the MFTT to have a strategic planning session where SMC, AC, MFTT, SRC would all be involved in ironing out these issues and relationship problems. Brother Gianni is on that committee. He can tell us what has happened. But for the rest, the SMC isn't in a position to tell you whether there will be licensing or not. About the spouses, it's an issue that we've spoken about in the past, as we often speak about things, even take decisions but don't carry them out. And partly it's been because of capacity. So let's try to make a concrete proposal. Actually, one of the ideas behind this finalist contact session in July, and you all know this was intended to be a face-to-face meeting at Lumko Training Center in Benoni. The idea was to invite your spouses or fiancés to come along, so that we will have an opportunity to see you in context with your significant others, your husband or wife, or fiancé or girlfriend, boyfriend for that matter, if it's a whatever, you know. But so that that was the idea. We've never been able to pull it off. In the past, at Lefika and at Turfloop, these things were possible because there were houses where the married students lived with their families. They were on the campus, literally, of the seminary. And so there were Muruti, who gave the courses and there were six white professors teaching with the money of the DRC, and they were qualified social workers and psychologists, and they groomed and taught the Buma Muruti. We don't have those privileges now, but I'm not pleading poverty. I'm admitting that we failed. But let's try to make a concrete suggestion that within a month, we'll have a Zoom meeting. Now, you must decide, do you want let's say an interview with a clinical psychologist as a couple, husband, wife with a psychologist? Do we want to have a group session with 5 couples? What would be the best? What, under the dire circumstances that we are in, that we can't have conferences now, what would be the wisest? What would be most helpful to you? And then we act on it. Let the SMC simply start with it. We don't need anybody's permission to do this. This is within our job description. Let me stop there, Brother Gianni. Over to you. Is that an old hand? Okay. Maybe any response to what I've said, or any other questions, any other, I see something in the chat. Can we ask the MFTT secretary to come to the meeting tomorrow? Please allow the chairperson of the MFTT to answer the questions tomorrow. I think those are 2 valid suggestions. You could well ask the chairperson of the MFTT tomorrow these questions. There's an opportunity to do so. Any other comments on the day or on any other issue? Please put up your hand. Is that?
That's a new hand.
Yeah, that's a new hand, right?
No, thank you, Professor, and everyone from the management team for the session today. I think we did get a lot of empowerment and a lot of clarity on key issues that we are facing and will be facing. So I'm just expressing my gratitude that it was a good session.
Yes, and could I then in response also thank you and whoever else, I think Brother Foucault as well, for setting up the Zoom and for making it run as smoothly as it did. Thank you very much for that background work. Brother Twala, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. I also like to thank the management, fellow student, for this session. The session was how can I say? I gained a lot of information, especially the part where we had Mr. Mbele, and I'm hoping that we'll have more of Mr. Mbele, because I think as the minister student, we are faced with challenges and we don't know where to go and cry. But we have like people like Mr. Mbele, maybe the people that can help us to shape us, because we don't want to go into a ministry with anger, then you go there and become anger ministers. But we want to go into a ministry, into a church, into a congregation as happy as we can, so we can be able to go and share the word of God with the congregants. But with the challenge that we are facing now, it makes us, people say, oh, we are bitter. It's not that we are bitter, but things are not going the way we expected. Because here at NTS, my belief is that we are here to be groomed, so that when you go out, you go out matured. But it looks like it's an opposite of that. But anyway, I'm glad that we had Mr. Mbele today, and I'm hoping that we'll use more of him in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I also really appreciated his input, very informative. Well, look, you see, our very purpose was to have, as I said, a face-to-face 3-day meeting from Tuesday lunch until Thursday lunch at Lumko. And with Mr. Mbele there the whole time, and that he would have personal interviews with especially the finalists who could possibly even be licensed in August, but with each one of the people present. That was our idea. Unfortunately, because of this limited platform, we weren't able to do that. But maybe to link the spouse issue of you and your wife being groomed together, being shaped together for ministry, together with his counseling focus with Brother Mbele. Look, it costs money, hey? He's a professional, he charges for his services. But I have personally found his input in Melodi Atswane extremely helpful for myself personally, but also for the CMM. He came and had a group workshop with CMM members, and it was extremely fruitful. So I can vouch for this, and we must see how in the rest of this year we can do it. And he's heartily willing to do it as well, as a committed Christian, not belonging to the Reformed Church, but he's willing to help improve the quality of ministry. And it's a rare psychologist in some ways. So thank you. I think we must just ask, I'm making notes, so I think the assessment, the academic unit will take this up and take it back to SMC for implementation as soon as possible. Brother Pudumo?
Thank you, Prof. Now, mine was also to thank the organizers of this session and sessions, as well as the presenters who presented various relevant topics today. It was very informative, and we learned something from this one. So it's just a big thank you to everyone who arranged this. It was a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Tsidi. So now we're at 15:15, so I don't want to extend this unless there's an urgent hand now. Now, if you wanted to have a 15-minute discussion among students with no SMC involved, I'm quite happy to retire from here. Do we first have the devotion and then you have your discussion? What was your agreement? Brother Fukas, as SRC chair, or Brother Matabati, who's leading this?
I think is it Onika or Twala today?
Can I get in there? Sorry.
Oh yeah, because Onika's
I got a message that Sister Onika is attending to the funeral. I think her mentor passed on. So Muluku will be the one doing the devotion now.
Okay, and then after the devotion, then you will have a further student discussion. Okay, so then let me ask Brother Lisecha Moloko to step up to the plate and to give us the devotion. Over to you.
Thank you, Prof, and everyone. That it's a very nice pleasure to always to come and share a small message from the Book of God. Without wasting any time, can we all go to Job chapter 5, verse 15 to 16 only? Job chapter 5, verse 15 to 16 only. Are we getting it?
Yes, we are there.
Okay. Yes, we are there.
Okay, thank you. We're only going to read 2 verses only. It says, but God saved the poor from death. He saves the needy from the oppressions. He gave hope to the poor and silenced the wicked. I don't know who else will have another different version or of another language that can do it for us before we pray. Okay. This small devotion, this small message for the devotion today, I'm just going to talk about when hope is gone, who do you call? When hope is gone, who do you call? Brother Focus this morning in his sermon, he talks about a place of hope, where two brothers were talking about the event that they've seen in Jerusalem. The narrative reflected something different from the actual event. That happens that what happens to Jesus? These two brothers, the disciples, have said that they had hoped that him, or in bracket Jesus, is the one who's going to save Jerusalem. But the hope they had, the only place where they thought that they would be saved or they'll see hope from that person that was from the Jesus Christ that was in the cross. The narrative was the whole story of hope to them have directed in a different direction. They become too deep in the ground, and they have forced themselves to die and be gone, and the hope was dead to them. The door was closed of hope to them because of the narrative that they've uttered when they say to them, we thought he's the one that is going to save Jerusalem. But where we have read, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we have read from the book of Job. And then Job, that was the scholars said that Job was having a very rich things. He was rich, and his wealth was so much that people there where he was staying at Oz, they thought they praised him because of what he was having. And Job was under the supervision of God, because Job was the person that God has favored every time when he's still alive. And God was the one who protected Job until the end of time, when it comes to a point that in one day, Job found bad news. In one day, he found bad news. The first one was that his livestock and his servants, the 10 children, all died because of the natural occurrence. It was called an earthquake that happened. And then the second one is just that when Job was at that time when Satan was telling God to say that, let me show you that I can take Job and make a mess out of him. But that God allowed Satan that you can do anything to him, meaning that when Job at that time, as much as God loved him, but he still allowed Satan to get through what he was in at that time. And when when he explained that the troubles that Job has called him, went through, that the narrative that he starts by the verse 1 when he says, call if you can, but who will answer you? When everybody has entitled to make calls, we call everyone at a time. I can call someone to say, come and help me. I can make a business call. I can make a pastoral care call. I can make each and every call or a social call towards anywhere. But it's a call that needs to, it's a call that I'm trying to make. But the question that has been done is that when Job, even though he went through those circumstances, but he was able to call unto God to say, God, please hear my prayers. He was able to say to his wife that he knows that his Savior still lives and he's still powerful. That according to Eliphaz, Job as his problems, they were in a situation whereby he needed to make a call. He was trying to explain to the people, he was trying to tell to the people that Job, the servant of God, that he was that was praying God every time. He makes it a point that wherever troubles that he's going through, the first call that Job makes is a call to God to say, oh, please, God, come and help me. When David talks about this call in Psalm 71, verse 5 and 14, Verse 5 is saying, for you have been my hope, servant Lord, my confidence since I was young. And when you go to verse 14, it says, as for me, I will always have hope. I will praise you more and more. That was the language that Job had spoken and says to us that even though I'm into this trouble, I will always call unto God. I know that this year, the last year, we are facing a lot of issues, especially at this current situation that our church is facing. And yet we become and say that we are facing a situation that we do not know who to call when we say. But the questions to us is that when we are in this kind of situation, we're in this kind of the way things are being done in this world, who do you call? Job called God to say, God, please come and help me. David called God and say, please come, God. I know you are my helper every time when I call you. Isaiah, when he talks about this calling, he says, God talks to him and say, call unto me and I will answer. And this is a type of call that I'm asking your brothers and sisters, that when you are in troubles, who do you call? Who do you call? And I urge you today that let the words of Job that says to us that I know that my Lord lives. I know that he will always be there with me because he promised us that I will never leave you or forsake us. When we want to come out of these troubles, when you call to say to someone to say, let God help us. When you do that call, just like we call our friends, just like we call our neighbors, just like we call our families, as we do the call, let's check, who do we call in times of troubles? When hope is gone, when the door of hope is closed, when the door of hope is locked, when there's no light at the end of the tunnel, when you don't see anything that is working out, call unto him because he will answer. Because when someone talks about this God that we need to call, he said to us, he is the creator. He is the one who is doing everything for us. When we sleep, when we go, he is the one who protects us. When we call unto him, he will answer. Even when when we start our services every Sunday, there's a part that I like. It says, I take my eyes to the mountains where my help will come from God. When it goes down to the Psalm, when it says to us, it's the call that we need to call. When we call unto him, he will answer. So brothers and sisters, wherever you are sitting, when you think about the call that you are facing, when you think about everything that you're looking at is not working out, please make one call to say to God, I call unto you, come and help me. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you today for giving us the food and reminding us that we need to call unto you every time when we need help. We call unto you, God, that's much as what we see today, as what we're going through today, as our land has come to be a place of a playground for criminals and corruptions. And we call unto you that, please, God, come unto us, come down and help us, because we call unto you, because we know that when we call you, you will answer when you do. The questions and answers to you are simple because you are the one who created us. We thank you, Lord, for everything that you have done for us. And we would like to say, thank you, God, for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is just a small devotion.
Thank you very much for the wonderful message.
Thanks very much.